Dear Libra, you didn't stumble upon this video. You were summoned. This is not just another horoscope. This is a divine message delivered right on time, for your soul. Let me be clear from the first breath. If you're hearing these words, it's because heaven has chosen this moment to reach you. Not next week. Not when you're ready. Now. Because something rare, something no one else has ever experienced before, is preparing to enter your life. And deep inside, you already feel it, don't you? You've seen the signs. The subtle synchronicities. The dreams that repeat. The quiet feeling that someone is watching, not with judgment but with love. That someone is God. And God is not waiting for you in some distant sky. He is waiting inside your choice to finally return to yourself. At Zodiac Whisper Tarot, this is more than a reading. This is sanctuary. This is soul recognition. Here, you are not analyzed. You are understood. And here, we don't talk about fate as something handed to you. We talk about the moment you realize it was always within you. So I ask you, Libra, have you been living in alignment with your truth or in quiet compliance with what keeps the peace? You are the sign of balance, harmony, and beauty. But somewhere along the way, you've been taught that balance means sacrifice. That being kind means being silent. That being light means making yourself smaller for others to shine. And I'm here to tell you, that time is over. Because this week, the universe is offering you a conversation not with me, but with your own soul. A conversation that begins with one courageous choice. Will you choose yourself, fully, this time? And I want to pause right here and say something from my heart. Let me take a moment to express my deepest gratitude for your presence here today. Every like, every comment, every soul that subscribes to Zodiac Whisper Tarot is not just supporting this channel, it is helping this community grow into a sacred space where truth can be spoken, and healing can begin. You have no idea how much your energy contributes to what we create here together. Now, I'd love for you to comment below the number 12, the sacred number of soul awakening. Comment it if you feel something within you is shifting, aligning, awakening. That's your sign. Don't ignore it. And trust me, Libra, this is one video you'll want to stay with until the very last moment, because what the universe is revealing about your path ahead, it's not just powerful. It's holy. So breathe deeply. Let the noise of the world fall away. You're safe here. You're seen here. And you're about to remember a part of yourself that you've hidden for far too long. Let's walk through this doorway together. You're not late. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Perhaps you've gotten used to staying quiet when your heart wants to speak. Maybe you've learned to keep your tone soft, your opinions neutral, and your presence non-disruptive. Not because you lack clarity, but because somewhere along the path, peace with others began to matter more than peace with yourself. For Libra, the Zodiac's harmonizer, this is a sacred paradox. The very gift of creating balance often comes at the cost of personal truth when left unchecked. And now, life is asking for a recalibration. This part of your journey isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to someone ancient inside of you, someone whose voice you once trusted, before it was drowned out by politeness, performance, or the fear of losing connection. The universe is presenting you with a mirror, and not just any mirror. This one doesn't show you how you look, it shows you who you are, without filters, roles, or expectations. It's a sacred moment of alignment, a divine confrontation with your own soul. From an astrological lens, Libra is ruled by Venus, the planet of beauty, value, and relational equilibrium. But Venus also governs self-worth. And when the scales are tilted for too long in favor of external harmony, internal chaos grows silently beneath the surface. That's when your smile becomes a mask, your compassion turns into depletion, and your boundaries dissolve under the weight of being everything to everyone. The air element you embody grants you insight, vision, and the capacity to rise above emotional turbulence to see the full picture. But right now, Libra, the invitation isn't to float, it's to ground. To root into your body, your truth, your yes, and your no, because without gravity, even the most elegant ideas remain untethered. This moment is asking you to drop back into your center, not the version of yourself that keeps the peace, but the one who speaks with clarity even when her voice trembles. Numerology offers powerful symbols during soul-level shifts like this. The number 2 speaks to sacred partnerships but also duality, the inner conflict between what you need and what you give. The number 6 reminds you of healing through harmony, but only when love is offered with integrity and not as a sacrifice. And the number 11, a master number, arrives during spiritual awakenings as a sign that you're ready to walk through a new gateway, one that demands truth, not compliance. The challenge in this phase is not about blaming others for the roles you've played, it's about gently reclaiming the ones you forgot. You are not being asked to be louder, bolder, or more aggressive. You're being asked to be honest, and that's often the bravest act of all. Honesty with yourself will shake the illusions. It may cost you some dynamics that were never meant to hold the weight of your full truth. But it will return something infinitely greater, your alignment with grace, with clarity, and with the knowing that you can be loved as you truly are. In quiet moments of reflection, you may hear a whisper in your heart that says, "You've done enough for them. Now it's time to come home to you." That is not arrogance. That is sacred stewardship. Even in the most ancient teachings, we're reminded that we are called not to abandon ourselves in the name of peace, but to love our neighbor as ourselves, not instead of. So take a breath here. You don't need to rush this remembering. You're not behind. You're simply arriving at the part of your life where you no longer postpone your own return. And that, dear Libra, is where your real balance begins. Some lessons don't arrive like thunder, they arrive like a whisper, tucked inside the patterns we repeat and the stories we silently carry. Libra, your softness has always been your compass, not your weakness. Yet over time, the world may have taught you to second-guess that. It may have applauded your diplomacy while simultaneously asking you to shrink. And now, you're being asked to revisit this idea, that your gentleness, your sensitivity, and your desire for harmony are not defects to correct, they are gifts to protect. Think of your energy as a beautiful, finely balanced scale. But what happens when that scale has been tilted for too long, not by chaos, but by self-forgetting? When your instinct to make things peaceful has placed your needs at the very bottom of every decision? The result isn't balance, it's depletion disguised as grace. And the cost is high, your voice grows quieter, your light dims slowly, and you begin to wonder if who you are is too much, or not enough, depending on who's watching. As someone who has studied the deep symbolic and energetic meanings of the Zodiac, I can tell you this: the archetype of Libra was never meant to be passive. The Justice card in tarot, which corresponds directly to your sign, does not hold a silenced tongue. She holds a sword and a scale. She doesn't lash out, but she also doesn't disappear. She is present, aware, and fully rooted in the wisdom that truth is love and love without truth is a fragile illusion. This moment in your life, right now, is offering you the opportunity to practice what I call gentle strength. It's the kind of power that doesn't raise its voice, but doesn't lower its boundaries either. It's the strength to say, I matter too, without apology. To ask for what you need, without guilt. And to stop performing a version of peace that costs you your presence. Let's ground this into something practical. Here's a small but powerful reflection exercise. Write down 3 things you've done in the past month just to please someone else, something you didn't truly want to do, but did out of habit or obligation. Then, ask yourself this: if today, I no longer needed to please anyone to be worthy of love, what would I choose instead? That single question opens a door to realignment. Because too often, we forget that we are allowed to be kind without being invisible. We are allowed to consider others without abandoning ourselves. And yes, we are allowed to make choices that serve our highest well-being even if they create temporary discomfort for others. You see, one of the most gentle teachings that has echoed through time, spoken in quiet moments by those who walk in wisdom, is this: love your neighbor, yes, but also love yourself enough to stop dissolving for them. You are not here to disappear into people's expectations. You are here to embody something rare: elegance with roots, grace with voice, and clarity with kindness. Libra, if you've ever felt like you had to become smaller in order to be accepted, I invite you to release that belief right here. Share it below. No one is judging you. This space was made for you to remember that shrinking doesn't equal safety. And that your quiet doesn't have to mean your silence. This is the part where you begin to honor your softness as a form of sacred leadership, not just for others, but for yourself. Because being gentle in a world that teaches hardness isn't foolish. It's revolutionary. Some messages don't arrive in thunder. They arrive in stillness, in the silence between words, in the breath you didn't know you were holding, in the moment your eyes meet someone else's and something inside shifts. Libra, you are now standing in one of those moments. Not a crisis, not a climax, but something more subtle and sacred, a quiet call. And the question is not whether the call is real. The real question is whether you're willing to respond to it, not with certainty, but with honesty. The universe doesn't always shout when it wants your attention. Sometimes it speaks in repetition. A dream that returns. A lyric that echoes too perfectly. A stranger's sentence that lands too deep. These are not coincidences, they're invitations. Invitations to come back to yourself. And that's the essence of this moment, not to become someone else, but to say yes to the parts of you that have been waiting in the background, patiently, for permission to step forward. For someone born under the sign of Libra, you are intimately familiar with duality, light and shadow, inner voice and outer demand, peace for others and silence for yourself. This cosmic crossroad you're standing at is about reclaiming your role not as a mirror for the world but as a voice within it. It's not a rebellion. It's a realignment. You may have been taught that choosing yourself is selfish. But here's a quiet truth you deserve to remember: choosing yourself is what teaches others how to honor the sacred within them too. You lead not by control, but by example. And your most powerful example is living in a way that doesn't betray your spirit just to maintain appearances. There is a gentle wisdom I've come to trust over the years. It doesn't come from stars or cards alone. It comes from watching people rise. It says that heaven is not a destination beyond the clouds. Heaven begins wherever you begin to live in truth. And that truth often starts with a question: am I living a life that includes me, or just the version of me that feels safest? Sometimes, all it takes is a small shift to begin again. Replace one habit that drains you with one that nourishes you. Say no to one thing that feels heavy so you can say yes to something that feels whole. Face a memory you've tried to outrun, not to relive it, but to release it. Because freedom isn't found in pretending it never happened, it's found in being strong enough to no longer let it define you. This is your sacred moment. And no, you don't need to wait until you're stronger, better, more healed, or more ready. You don't need to prove yourself worthy of love, of joy, or of being seen. You are already worthy because you exist. Because you feel. Because you're trying. And that alone places you in alignment with everything that is real. So I ask you now, not to impress me, not to impress anyone, but to whisper an answer to your own heart. Are you willing to receive love and success not because you've perfected yourself, but because you've chosen to be real? You don't need to die to get to heaven, Libra. You just need to live more honestly. And if you're willing to meet that honesty where it stands right at the door of your next decision, then yes, the divine will meet you there too, quietly, faithfully, and without delay. Change, when it's truly fated, rarely asks for permission. It doesn't wait for perfect conditions or a well-prepared heart. Instead, it appears suddenly, sometimes quietly, sometimes as a thunderous emotional wave when the soul is ripe for something greater. Libra, what you are about to experience in the days ahead isn't random. It's a cosmic ripple, set in motion long before this moment, arriving now because you are ready even if you don't feel ready yet. Within the next 3 to 7 days, the energy around you is shifting in a way that no longer whispers, it speaks, clearly and unmistakably. It may come as a conversation that feels too precise to be coincidence. It may arrive in the form of a dream, perhaps about someone who has passed, someone whose memory is tied not just to nostalgia but to something unresolved. Or it could emerge as a sudden burst of inner knowing, a feeling that something must change now, and that to ignore it would be to betray yourself. You won't need logic to interpret it. You'll know by how deeply it stirs you. Astrologically speaking, Libra is ruled by Venus, the planet of beauty and harmony, but also of values. When the universe sends energy this strong into your field, it's often tied to a major recalibration of what you value, what you're no longer willing to tolerate, and what you are finally ready to claim. These moments don't always look dramatic on the outside, but inside, they carry the weight of personal revolution. They are your spiritual thresholds. And this time, the invitation isn't to think about walking through the door, it's to walk. Color symbolism becomes incredibly important during energetic gateways like this. Wearing or surrounding yourself with sapphire blue can help you tune into clarity and inner truth. Creamy white supports emotional release and spiritual neutrality, especially when you're processing grief or long-held confusion. Silver, with its lunar, intuitive resonance, can support calm integration and quiet strength. These aren't just aesthetic choices. They are energetic tools, grounding you while your soul undergoes expansion. You might also begin to notice the appearance of symbols. Swans, graceful yet powerful, remind you that you are allowed to move through transformation with elegance, not chaos. The six-pointed star, often called the star of creation, is a call to integrate opposites, light and dark, action and rest, mind and heart. And the lily, long associated with rebirth and integrity, reflects your ability to remain true to yourself while entering new spaces. But this is where the real invitation deepens. Because once this call comes, once the universe sends the nudge, the dream, the sign, there's a choice to be made. And that choice matters. If you stay where you are, in the version of yourself that no longer reflects who you've become, life may continue, but it will do so on a loop. And the pain of that repetition will feel sharper than before. Not because you're being punished, but because your soul now knows better. The ache won't come from the external, it will come from the internal knowing that you said, "Not yet," when your life was ready to say, "Yes." So take this moment seriously, but not fearfully. This is not a warning. It's a wake-up call written in love. You are not being asked to leap blindly. You are being asked to say yes with quiet confidence to a version of yourself that is more honest, more whole, more aligned than ever before. This moment doesn't demand you be perfect. It asks that you be willing. And if you feel that stirring already, if a certain image, name, dream, or decision has already begun to circle you, pay attention. Because that's not imagination. That's the hinge of the door turning. And what lies on the other side is not just new. It's yours. There comes a moment when clarity no longer feels like a concept, it feels like a pulse inside your chest. A steady, subtle nudge that says, "This is not who I am anymore." And even if you can't yet articulate who you're becoming, you know the version of you that you've been carrying quietly, overextending, constantly adapting, overthinking to keep the peace no longer sustainable. Libra, this is that moment. The moment to say, with quiet strength and open-hearted certainty, "I choose myself." This choice isn't loud. It doesn't need to be defiant. It doesn't burn bridges or seek approval. It simply says, "I will no longer abandon myself for acceptance. I will no longer trade my truth for temporary comfort." Choosing yourself isn't about being selfish. It's about being aligned. And when you're aligned, the right people, the right opportunities, and the right timing begin to orbit you with ease, not because you fought harder, but because you stopped resisting who you really are. From the lens of cosmic design, Libra is here to master balance, but not at the cost of authenticity. The universe didn't create you to be agreeable, it created you to be whole. To bring harmony into the world, not through people-pleasing, but through inner congruence. You can't offer balance to others if your own internal scales are tilted by neglect. And now is the time to rebalance from within. Let's bring that down into your physical reality. On a health level, choosing yourself looks like finally honoring your energy. You don't need to wait for burnout to justify rest. Your nervous system, ruled by Venus's sensitivity, craves magnesium-rich foods, hydration, deep breaths, and the kind of movement that doesn't feel like punishment, gentle walks, stretches under morning light, or just 10 minutes of silence. Listen to your body. It's not a machine to control, but a messenger of alignment. In your work life, if the path you're on feels like it belongs to someone else's dream, this is your cue to pause and reassess. You don't have to know the final destination, just the next true step. Grab a pen. Write out what you actually want to feel each day. Purpose doesn't always start with a title. It starts with emotion. Build from there. Financially, choosing yourself may mean shifting how you spend, not to impress or prove but to support your deeper values. Before any purchase, ask, is this an investment in my future self, or is this an escape from a version of me I haven't made peace with yet? When money flows from alignment, it circulates with integrity. And that, in itself, becomes abundance. In love, the truth is simple, though not always easy. Love that asks you to shrink, to second guess, or to contort yourself into someone smaller isn't love. It's attachment. And you deserve more. You deserve a connection that meets your depth, not one that diminishes it. Wait for the kind of love that speaks your soul's language. The one that doesn't demand a mask but honors your full expression. There's a kind of grace that enters your life the moment you finally choose yourself. And while that choice may feel quiet to others, to the universe it's thunder. When you say yes to your truth, the world around you begins to reorganize. Things fall away. People shift. And what remains is what was always meant to meet you in your wholeness. So if today is the day you decide to come back home to yourself, know this, you're not late. You're not behind. You're right on time. You don't need to be better to deserve what's meant for you. You only need to be real. Because when you choose yourself, the universe chooses you right back. Always. Quietly. Powerfully. Without hesitation. Libra, if you've made it this far, take a moment to acknowledge something sacred, your willingness to listen not just to this message, but to the quiet voice inside you that brought you here. That voice wasn't wrong. It wasn't weak. It was wise. Because what you've just witnessed is more than a horoscope, it's a return to yourself. And what a powerful return that is. You see, you are not defined by the chapters where you felt unseen, unheard, or misunderstood. You are defined by the way you kept your heart open anyway. By the way you kept showing up, even when parts of you wanted to shut down. That's not survival. That's soul. And now, you're standing in front of a doorway that only opens when truth and courage meet. It doesn't require perfection. It doesn't demand answers. It simply asks, will you choose yourself today, even if you've spent years choosing everyone else? Will you allow yourself to believe that you are worthy not someday, but now? Not when you're better, more healed, more certain, but right here, in your current becoming? Because here's what I know from guiding thousands of souls like yours. The moment you say yes to yourself is the same moment the universe starts clearing a path for you. It may not happen all at once. But it will happen. Because what's meant for the real you, the one who honors her inner voice, respects her energy, and shows up with integrity, can only arrive when you stop pretending and start aligning. So let me ask you gently, what would shift in your life if you believed you didn't have to wait to be chosen because you've already been chosen by something greater? What would change if you realized that your softness was strength, that your balance was a gift, and that your truth didn't make you difficult, it made you divine? You don't need to wait for the right moment. This is the right moment. You don't need to seek permission. Your soul already gave it. And you don't need to find the light. Libra, you are the light. And when you walk in it, even just a little, the right people, paths, and possibilities start recognizing you. Not because you chased them but because you remembered who you are. And I want you to remember this too, you are not walking alone. Every person who joins us here at Zodiac Whisper Tarot is part of this awakening. We are walking beside you step by step, truth by truth, breath by breath. So if today you feel ready, leave a comment below with the words, "I have chosen myself." Not for me, but as a declaration to your future self. If this message moved something in you, let it ripple. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that they matter. Subscribe if you haven't already, because this isn't a one-time connection, it's a growing journey of healing, empowerment, and sacred remembering. Thank you, from the very bottom of my heart, for being here. For showing up with your whole self. Your presence is not only valued, it's powerful. And don't forget, God isn't waiting for you behind the storm. He's waiting for you in the moment you choose courage. So take one breath, take one step, and keep choosing. We'll walk this path together. Always.